What's up, guys? We are doing the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan card review for the new Hearthstone expansion. So far, 37 of the 132 cards have been revealed. This will be my first review, and then we will continue with the future reviews with the new cards after this point. We're going to be beginning with the class cards here, and we're going to start with Druid at the top. There have been a fair number of cards already released. I'll try to give you my thoughts on them. It wouldn't surprise me if later on I may change my opinion about some of these cards, because a lot of them demand synergy or have very specific mechanics, especially out of the class cards, that could change if they release other cards that interact with those. So we'll see about that in a future review, but I'll give you the initial thoughts of what we've got so far. And some of these cards are really cool. I'm definitely excited to play a couple of them, or more than many. Kun the Forgotten King, the legendary for Druid. Choose one, gain 10 armor, refresh your mana crystals. Okay, so it's a 10 mana, 7/7. You can't play it until turn 10, which means it's a heavy card in your hand. This is always the unfortunate thing where you look at it and it has a pretty cool effect where you refresh your mana crystals, so essentially it costs 0 mana at that point. You just get your whole turn back and you play a 7/7 for nothing. But you had to have it in your hand the whole game up to that point, and I don't think that that's a good thing for you. It's way too expensive a card to have done that. On the other side, gaining 10 armor is potentially a lot better. There's ways to get cheap drops that you can put on the board. Things like Arcane Giant, for example. We've seen a lot out of Druid recently. But gaining 10 armor is tough to come by, and that's worth a card value and also a specific situational card value. The flexibility of this card is what's really attractive about it, and the fact that that choice is pretty useful in the different matchups where you can have a defensive tool or you can have an aggressive tool. I think that's what saves it and what makes it maybe playable, but it's out there. You know, it's going to be on the outlier. I don't see this being so crucially central to every deck, and if it is, it really depends on how strong that 10 armor was, more than the mana, in my opinion. It gets a bit of unique synergy with Aviana as well. If you play Aviana, then you can drop another creature. If you play Aviana, then you drop Kun. Now you have 10 mana, and Aviana's made the cost of all of the minions in your hand 1, so you could play out your entire hand, which is a really cool combo play, and that would be the actual like game-breaking mechanic if you could get that to occur. Next up, Lunar Visions. 5 mana, draw 2 cards, minions drawn cost 2 less. I think that this is maybe a cool card, but it's really not that effective because Druid already has so many card draw mechanics. Druid's one of the classes that can draw through their deck more efficiently than probably anyone other than a Warlock, and the fact that you even have another 5 mana card draw out of Nourish, which is just much more effective than this. It's like you're blind drawing into what those things were. They might not even be a minion, so there's no way you could count on this when you're building your deck to always be effective. I think that it's probably not going to see much play. Pilfered Power, 3 mana, gain an empty mana crystal for each friendly minion. So this is like another way to gain mana crystals. Gaining mana crystals is traditionally pretty strong. Almost every way to gain mana crystals has been used in the past. Astral Communion does not really see much play, but it's shown up in a deck from time to time. Wouldn't surprise me if someone can find a way to make this work. I don't see anything immediately, but also the ability to flood the board early with Innervate and Living Roots suggests that Druid's a little more powerful with this mechanic anyways. 5 mana, Lotus Agents. Battlecry, discover a Druid, Rogue, or Shaman card. So this is the first of the Cabal cards that we've seen. And this is the cards which link the 3 classes together, and you will always discover one choice from each class, so you will get a random Druid, Rogue, and Shaman card offered to you in the Discover. I think that of the Cabal cards, this body, as a 5/3 body, is probably one of the weakest. This is expensive to play for the fact that you're drawing a card, and most of the other Cabal cards are not as expensive. So the fact that it's expensive and it's a weak body, I think is probably its downside. I wonder if they had to do that just because of the fact that it was going to be included with Druid, and Druid has the ability to have more mana. They found they needed to make the Cabal card cost more mana, but it does seem to punish the Rogue and Shaman somewhat in that trade-off. Mark of the Lotus. Okay, this card is bonkers. This is like the better Power of the Wild. It's just half the mana of Power of the Wild. Of course, Power of the Wild has the situational make a 3/2, but that doesn't actually increase the power of the card. It just makes it flexible. So anytime you were using Power of the Wild to create a buff, this would just be better. And you can stack this with Power of the Wild. You can play both of them together, which I think is a great choice because Power of the Wild could even be played as a 3/2. So there's no disadvantage to including that. With Violet Teacher, with Living Roots, this can add an insane amount of stats to the board. This is potentially the strongest card that I've seen out of the expansion, and one of the only ones I'd say is well above the standard level of power curve, where this mechanic is just straight up better than an already good mechanic that we had in play. I'm not even sure why it was introduced. Maybe they felt Token Druid was a little behind, but it seems pretty good to me. I definitely think you'll like to play that. Okay, Hunter has not had as much offered to it yet as Druid with only 3 reveals. Piranha Launcher, 5 mana, 2/4 weapon. After hero attacks, summon a 1/1 Piranha. Initially, I thought this was really bad. I was like, this seems just awful. Why would you want it? And then I was like, okay, well, you only put it face, right? Like, you only go face. Maybe there's that one time you hit a creature, but this is definitely a face stack weapon. So you're paying 5 mana for 8 damage, which actually isn't that bad. I mean, if you're not playing Eaglehorn Bow, there's not a lot of other competitive weapon damage effects you can get for Hunter, and Hunter obviously wants a lot of face damage. 5 mana for 8 damage is actually a really good trade in the end. The downside is you have to have attacked 4 times. The upside is you've summoned a creature every turn for free. Even if it was just the 8 damage, you might have played it had you had no other weapons. It is expensive, so it doesn't come into play until later in the game. You definitely have to be looking to play till around turn 9 with Call of the Wild. I don't think it's as bad as some other people have said, though. I definitely think, Fireball is 4 mana, 6 damage. That's a pretty good trade for face, and this is a bigger Hunter version that does more, so. It just takes a while. Definitely pushes Hunter in a bit of a slower style, which I think Hunter needs. They need more cards which are kind of powerful that work out into the late game. At least they're thinking about that. I'm not sure if it'll see play, though. Trog Beast Rager, 2 mana, 3/2. Give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So that's pretty good. I mean, this is actually the first time I've seen this card. Of course, they're releasing new cards pretty regularly. Give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So, yeah, I mean, that seems nice. You get the 3/2 out of it for 2 mana, and you've got a guaranteed buff. Sure, I would play this card. I would rate this card slightly above the curve even. It's not game-breakingly good, but it's especially nice with the Hunter cards, which tend to be Death Rattle cards. And so when the initial body is more imposing, when the Kindly Grandmother, the wolf, is a 1/1 and then suddenly it's a 2/2, you're much more likely to have to kill the 2/2. And now the Death Rattle is more relevant. When the infested wolf is a 4/4 instead of a 3/3, you're more likely to want to kill it. I think that's actually a really strong mechanic. 2 mana, Grim Street Informant. 1/1 Battlecry, discover Hunter, Paladin, Warrior card. Alright, so this is way better than what we just saw, right? Like, this one is way better than Lotus Agents. It's actually an equivalent body to a standard form of card draw on its mana curve, which would be a Novice Engineer. It gives you the Discover option, which maybe makes it better than a Novice Engineer. And in exchange, both of these essentially only just draw that one card. So what you're looking for is a powerful card from another class. And the fact that you get it earlier, the fact that you get it for a lower cost, so you could play it on the turn maybe that you've drawn it, is amazing. I think this card is definitely the best one just because it is the lowest mana. We'll see how it plays out, but also the fact that the synergies between the classes are pretty important. I'm not totally coming to grips with what every single choice I'm going to get is out of these discovers, so I think it is relevant for how well the classes synergize together, but just on the basics of drawing a discovered card, the 1/1 and 2 mana cost would be really ideal to me. Mage, we see another Cabal card. This is not actually Mage, it's Cabal cards. This is Mage, Warlock, and Priest. Kazakis, they revealed this at the BlizzCon event, and this card looks just bonkers. I'd like to think of it as a 4 mana 3/3 which draws a card, which is actually pretty good because you have Gnomish Inventor, which is 4 mana 2/4 draw a card as the equivalent. So you're exchanging 1 health for 1 attack. It's probably a bit worse. But the Battlecry is a Discover, and it's creating a spell And the spell potential seems above what the mana cost of the spell was. The things that you create are going to be more impactful than if you had just had a 5 or a 10 or a 1 mana spell. So the card it's drawing is really important there, that it's just so much better. And it's flexible too, which is pretty nice. I think we're going to see this a lot. You could also consider that it's a battle cry, so he works with Brand Bronzebeard for that limited time. These next 4 months where they're both in the meta, you can brand Kazakis, and that's not even that unreasonable. It's a 7 mana combo, which would probably give you some game-winning potential. You could get 2 10 mana ones, you could get a 5 and a 10 mana. Yeah, that probably just wins you the game, and it's Reno friendly as well, so Priest could be having a Brand Kazakis in their Reno Dragon Priest to give them some really cool stuff. Manic Soulcaster, 3 mana, 3/4, battlecry. Choose a friendly minion, shuffle a copy in your deck. I like this card. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely flexible, and it's a good body at a 3/4. It's not the card that's going to be included in every deck, but it's one of those cards that you can definitely have fun with, and you can make some cool strategies work that other classes can't, where I can now put my Baron Geddon back into my deck. I can put my Reno Jackson back into my deck is the obvious one, right? But there's just a lot of cool things you could do with this. I'm not even sure all of the potential ones you want to look for there as a mage. And the body's not bad, so it's not really punishing you. 3 mana, 2/2, battlecry, discover a Mage, Priest, or Warlock card. Okay, this one's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as that, because there's really good 3 mana cards that are 3/3s. So the fact that it's a 2/2 is a letdown, but probably some pretty good synergy between those classes. I think there's some really good cards to look for just by my own knowledge. Warlock would probably be the one that has the worst, as there's a lot of demon cards, which would just be a complete dead draw out of that Discover. So I'm not too convinced that this card's actually going to see play in all reality. Okay, next up, Paladin. Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. 3 mana, 2/2, Divine Shield Taunt. Damage dealt by this minion also heals your hero. This card is really good. This card is just really good. I think you would play the 2/2 Divine Shield Taunt for almost any class, just based on how good it is. But Paladin even gets extra synergy with the blessings, and the fact that it's gaining you life when it deals damage, not even when it attacks. So when things attack in it and it's a taunt, it's guaranteed that it has to heal you. And with Divine Shield, it kind of has to heal you twice. If they kill it with a spell, it won't heal you, but yeah, it's a good card. This will definitely see play, and it works specifically well for Paladin. 3 mana, small time recruits, draw 3 1-cost minions from your deck. Okay, obviously it's for the 1-cost type of deck. I think this also really rewards Divine Favor decks, because by filtering out the lower cost cards in your Divine Favor deck, you're much more likely to draw into your bigger cards or your Divine Favor. So it can help you be more consistent with that type of strategy, which is something that's a lot of fun. I think that you could easily play this card. 1 mana, 1/2, Death Rattle. If this minion has 2 or more attack, draw a card. Mean Street Marshal. I don't know. I don't think that's that good. It does allow you to trade up. You can play it on the first turn. Obviously, they're trying to push the more 1-drop kind of early game synergy with Paladin. This card wants to make me think that it's going to do that, but I don't know how good it is. There's better 1-drop options, to be honest. It might be played. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what my opinion is of this card yet. I'd have to actually try it. Grim Street Informant, once again, same thing. We already saw that one. Getaway Kodo. 1 mana secret. When a friendly minion dies, return it to your hand. So it's like Redemption, but instead of coming back with 1 health, it gets put in your hand. I think this is good, but does it work with the hero power? If it works with the hero power, then it sucks, because the Paladin, big problem with Redemption too is that they summon these small creatures with their hero power, so it naturally gets countered. If it doesn't work with the hero power and it only worked with real creatures, I think it'd be really good, because you finally have something that you could play. I don't know, that would be my condition. If it brings back a Silverhand Recruit to my hand, that would be a completely wasted card. 2 mana, 1/1, Grim Street Outfitter. Battlecry, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Holy shit, that's good. Yes, that's really good. Really, really good. What? That's bonkers. Give all minions in your hands. That's just absolutely absurd. I mean, you're playing all of these small cards, so you could probably flood the board with them. It's low cost. You're not even close to waiting till later in the game. It's an easy development. It wasn't even really like it was a 3 mana 1/1 with this effect you would probably play. It's a battle cry. You could double it with Bran. This is just godlike tier. This is probably even better than Mark of the Lotus. I'm not sure which one's better, but they're both pretty godlike tier. Well above some of the other cards we've seen. Kazakus is also kind of godlike tier from the potions we've seen. Okay, so Kazakus we've talked about. Dragonfire Potion. Priest has gotten a lot of really beefy stuff here too. Dragonfire Potion, deal 5 damage to all minions except dragons. Okay, the one thing, it seems really good, and everybody's reviewing this says it's really good, and it is really good. Deal 5 damage is amazing. 5 damage is like the most consistent breakpoint right now, where 4 damage is just slightly below what the largest creatures will be. And you can even do something else on your turn. For 10 mana, you could play this and then have 4 mana left over to do whatever you want. But if your opponent is playing dragons, you get significantly punished. So just a straight counter to this is to play a dragon deck against Priest, and suddenly their Dragonfire Potion would not affect the opponent's board at all. I do think that's something that people are overlooking a bit. I like playing dragons personally. They don't get used that much right now. We are also losing some dragon cards. But if Dragon Priest was really to run rampant, then there's an easy way to stop this from doing any damage to you. Otherwise, pretty good card though. Definitely a strong removal as just a 5 damage AoE for 6 mana. 5 mana, 5/6 Draconoid Operative. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, discover a card in your opponent's deck. Okay, it's amazing. It's just amazing. It's a 5/6 that drew a card for 5 mana, which is awesome. It was a dragon. Both of those facts would make it playable. The fact that it's discover and it's from your opponent's deck are both mechanics that we have never seen interact before, and I think that those are well above what a normal card draw would be considered. Even if you're thinking of drawing a discover card from your own deck, it's above what a normal card draw would be considered. That's like tracking. That costs you 1 mana, and tracking threw away the other 2 cards. It's hard to discover cards from your own deck. Discovering cards from your opponent deck, you're even getting to pick now the best mechanic that you could not have included on your own and get information about what your opponent has. That's just really, really good. There's no way that's not good. Cabal Courier, we've seen already. Pint-sized Potion, this is also amazing. Give all enemy minions -3 attack this turn only. So Blizzard, Blizzard heard the outcry. People were saying like, hey man, Priest didn't get anything in Karazhan. What happened? Priest is bottom of the ladder. I want to play Priest. So they nailed us with this one. They said no matter what, you can play Priest. We're going to give you a 1 mana card that lets all of your creatures trade on their creatures and not take damage. And it's going to activate all of your priestly synergies. So this is just really, really good. For 1 mana, you would play this in any class because even just allowing a single creature to have traded up on something to let your 3/2 kill their 3/2 and not die was worth the 1 mana card to play. It affects the entire board, which is even better, significantly better. And of course, Priests have so many mechanics that punish low attack creatures. They have Cabal Shadow Priest, they have Shadow Madness, there's Shadowward Pain. It just feels endless, the things that Priest can do to your low attack creatures. And you can even stack these. You could play 2, reducing the entire board by 6 attack, meaning that basically any creature is susceptible to those types of mechanics at any time. Even an 8 attack creature would be reduced to 2 attack at that point. Really good card. I think you will definitely play that card. Yeah, Blizzard heard us when we said we wanted Priest to be a little better, huh? Cabal Talon Freeze, 3 mana, 3/4. As if they didn't get enough, let's throw another one in. The only good thing about this is it's not a dragon. Otherwise, Priest would just kill everybody. It is a 3/4, which has a battle cry, give a friendly minion +3 health. So 3/4 is already really good for 3 mana. Like, we were happy with the Mage card, the Manic Soulcaster being a 3/4. This one immediately impacts the board with a really big effect, +3 health. Directly supports Priest early game. It's synergized with itself. If you coin it out, then it's unlikely to die, and then you could cast the other one on the one you have on board already. It's a battle cry, so you get brand bonuses. It's a great card. You could easily play this card. It's also a common. I imagine it shows up in Arena a lot, and this is absolutely bonkers for Arena as well. If you had like a 2/3 and then you give it +3 health, it kills their 3/2 and survives. Now you have so much initiative out of that. And the final card, Potion of Madness. Gain control of an enemy minion with 2 or less attack until the end of turn. I think this card wouldn't be nearly as good if Pint-Sized Potion wasn't revealed. This card is still good. It's Shadow Madness, but it hits a 1 less attack and it costs 1 mana. So a quarter of the mana of Shadow Madness. You can definitely do some cool swingy things against certain types of minions. But 2 attacks, you know, they're not going to attack into anything as well, so I don't think that's so great. But with Pint-Sized Potion, suddenly you can do some pretty fantastic stuff with that. One of the really fun things to think about is Potion of Madness with Young Brewmaster, the 3/2 that returns a minion to your hand, which is a standard card. They'll always be there. And you can 1 mana steal their 2 attack something, have it survive, and then Brewmaster it back, and now they don't get the creature returned at the end. You've got it in your hand. So you could Pint-Sized Potion of Madness, Brewmaster, and just take it. You could have gotten an attack and take it for yourself as well. Pretty good combo. I think Priest is in a much better place with those cards being shown. Next up, Rogue, Shaku the Collector, 3 mana, 2/3, stealth whenever this attacks, and add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. Okay, so it's probably not that great. It's definitely pushing the random card stuff for Rogue still. We're seeing the Burgle and all that not really work out that well. It actually seemed somewhat playable, but it just isn't that fun to play with always random cards, because some matches you get really bad stuff. And it feels like the game's kind of playing it for you, so I'm not even convinced the Burgle Rogue's that bad right now. This doesn't really improve it, though. It just gives you another way to get 1 card. I think that its stats are pretty awful. If this was a Priest card, they would have made it a 3/4, right? It would have the same effect, but it'd be a 3/4. So Rogue definitely got something a little less impactful there. Lotus Assassin, on the other hand, 5/5, stealth. Whenever this minion attacks, it gains stealth. That's very strong. This is a really strong mechanic. It has a lot of health, which is the important fact of this card. Having so much health means that it's really likely to survive an attack on a mid-sized minion, and you can potentially jab out at their board multiple times. It also gives you a target for healing, so it makes it easier to include Earthen Ring Farseer in your deck, because if you Lotus Assassin, then having an Earthen Ring Farseer to heal it back up would mean it sustains itself in the fight and is a pretty big threat. I definitely like this type of card. Lotus Agents. So for Rogue, something to consider is that whenever they pick a card from Druid or Shaman, they are helping their Burgle stuff. The Ethereal Peddler would reduce those cards, so I think that makes it a little nicer. It's still only 1 card though, and I'm not sure how relevant that could be. Counterfeit coin, this is a big one. A lot of people are talking about this. I don't know how to feel. It's just a coin. It's half an innervate, essentially. Yeah, it's probably good. Works with the Auctioneer is the main thing, the Gadget Auctioneer. I think they're noticing Tomb Pillager will cycle out soon, and they're going to give Rogue some more coins. For a brief while, we're going to have Tomb Pillager and Counterfeit Coin. So Rogues are just going to be coining everything. I think one of the big things I don't like about this card is not that it's necessarily bad, but that it promotes a strategy which does not involve like as much decision making, where your early game can just be really explosive with this. I think that's the way it'll most often get used, is not for some cool Auctioneer combo, but will just be playing out really fast everything in your hand with having a bit of extra mana at the start. And that's just a low tier strategy, so I hope that that doesn't come to pass. Shaman, we've seen nothing, just Lotus Agent. Warlock, Kazakis, and Cabal Courier, we've seen nothing. Warriors got a couple. Stolen Goods, give a random taunt minion in your hand, +3/+3. It's a spell. There's a lot of really low attack, high health taunt minions. I think this is basically just an attack benefit. The health is still good, right? But it's mostly about making your guy bigger into an actual threatening creature on the board instead of just a taunt creature. It's like an investment, though. I think it's for a specific type of strategy. Yeah, you could probably play it. +3/+3 is definitely worth 2 mana if you were to put it on the board immediately. It's just hard to judge how useful it is in your hand, but definitely for 2 mana it's not so expensive. I know a guy, discover a taunt minion, There's some pretty bad taunt minions out there. I'm not sure I like this one. The Death Rattle version for Rogue with Journey below is pretty rewarding, but there's definitely some taunt minions you don't want to play. Frostwolf Grunt just comes to mind, for example, which is a 2/2 for 2 mana. There's too many things you could get out of this. Silverback, Patriarch, the 3/3 Iron Fur Grizzly. Yeah, you won't want this card. It's too low value. On the other side, Discover cards are more likely to get Warrior cards. So there's Fierce Monkey and the 2/6 for 4 mana, Bloodhoof Brave. I can't really think of a big taunt for Warrior though. Maybe we'll see a Legendary that'd be a big taunt, and then you'd be really likely to discover it, which would actually be a nice synergy there. We're up to the neutral cards, so we've seen all the class cards. I think a lot of them are yet to be rejudged, or also those Cabal cards. It's hard to tell exactly how the synergies will play out until I actually test them a bit, I think. Neutral cards, however, are a bit more straightforward. They tend to include some mechanics that I think are kind of setting the baseline for what some more neutral cards to come will look like. However, the first one we start off with is not one of those. Finge of the Flying Star. It's a 5 mana, 2/4 Murloc. Stealth. Whenever this attacks and kills a minion, summon 2 Murlocs in your deck. Alright, so that's pretty bad most of the time. You need to get really good Murlocs out of this. For 5 mana, you had to wait a long time, and then it has to kill something with 2 damage. Your opponent really had to play into that pretty hard, or you have a lot of ways to set up a trade. I'm not convinced it's even going to live through one trade. You might even just be attacking into something for 2 damage and getting the 2 Murlocs. The only one I could really see it being valuable with is if you're playing 2 Murloc Knights. Maybe we get a bigger Murloc introduced, but pretty awful stat line on that card, makes it unplayable. Auction Master Beardo, 3 mana, 3/4. After you cast a spell, refresh your hero power. How good is that? That's probably Warrior, right? I don't see a class other than Warrior that really wants that. It's a 3/4, so a 3/4 body is good, but like Warlock is not really going to want a hero power that many times in turn. Yeah, I'd say Warrior would be the one that would be after this card. I can't see why another class would want to use it. There could be some Hunter, maybe. But it's just really hard to see, because like you want to play this on turn 3, right? You want to play it on 3. But on turn 4, there's no way you could hero power twice and cast a spell. And you would never want to do that anyways. It'd be a huge tempo loss. So it's kind of like a late game play, and then it's just not that good. Patches the Pirate, on the other hand, really good card. You'll definitely play this if you're playing Pirates. There's no reason not to play it. Anytime it's not in your hand and you play a Pirate, you get a free 1/1 on the board with charge. That's awesome. It's just free. And Pirates are generally an aggressive strategy, so the fact that you're fatiguing 1 turn early doesn't matter at all. You will definitely see this card get played. Wind Up Burglebot, 6 mana, 5/5. Whenever this attacks a minion and survives, draw a card. Okay, so 5/5. It has to actually survive, and it has to attack first. There's no way. There's no way you're ever going to draw a card with this. If your opponent wants, they'll just kill it first. Even if it drew a card, it doesn't seem that valuable. You'd have to draw like 2 cards, really. I think that's terrible. Don't see that ever getting played. 3 mana, 3/7. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to this minion. Fel Orc Soulfiend. This is a great card. It's essentially a 3/5 for 3 mana. It also works really well with buff cards, because you can, say, use Divine Spirit and make it initially bigger so it's stickier on the board, making it a 3/14, and then the fact that it took 2 damage didn't matter that much. I think this card's great. At least it's a 3/5. 3 drops really aren't expected to live more than a turn and hit one thing, so it does its job effectively. Then it also gives you maybe some priest potential with the ability to heal it. Second Rate Bruiser, 5 mana, 4/5. This card's pretty bad. 4/5 costs 2 less if your opponent has at least 3 minions and it's taunt. A 4/5 for 5 mana would be terrible. You get Nexus Champion Sarad as a 4/5 for 5 mana, and you still don't even really play that. It essentially is taunt. Your opponent kills it every time. For 3 mana, it has 5 health, but your opponent had to have 3 minions on the board, which means you're way behind. And there's already 5 health, 3 mana cards, so the fact that it's situational makes it pretty terrible. Don't think you'd ever want to play that card. 6 mana, 1/1, big time Racketeer. Battlecry, summon a 6/6 Ogre. This card's slightly better than Boulder Fist Ogre. Gives you kind of 7/7 in stats. You never played Boulder Fist Ogre right now, though. I think the only reason you would want to use this is for the Battle Cry effect, because you could potentially double the Battle Cry with Bran Bronzebeard or interact some other way. But it's not that great. There's so many more impactful 6-drops. I don't think you'll see this played very much. Grook Fu Master, 5 mana, 3/5 with Wind Fury. Stat line is terrible. If it had 6 health, we could play it, but with 5 health, it might as well be a 4-drop, and it still won't see play. It's a 3/5, which is bad stats for a 4-drop. You get Fandral for a 3/5 for 4 mana. So Grook Fu Master probably going to remain on the chopping block. 4 mana, 4/4, Kooky Chemist. Battlecry, swap the attack and health of a minion. This is very similar to the Crazed Alchemist, which you get the same effect for 2 mana and a 2/2 body. I think his stat is really terrible at 4/4 for 4 mana. You have to be doing something pretty impactful. Kooky Chemist is like a flexibility card, or the Crazed Alchemist effect is like a flexibility card where you want to use it to random situations to occur to make them trade up your board, trade down on their guys. It's a really flexible thing, but for the more expensive version, you're not even getting a significantly better body, so you might as well just play the cheaper version, in my opinion. 2 mana, 2/3, Friendly Bartender. At the end of your turn, restore 1 health to your hero. 1 health is very little health. If this healed me 3 times, I think it might be okay. But there's no way a 2/3 is going to live on the board for 3 turns. A 2/3 barely trades on anything right now as well. And 3/2 bodies just tend to be better for 2 mana, since most people have 3 damage removals. So the 3 attacks able to trade up better but dies to the same thing. I think this card's pretty poor. 1 health is just way too low. On the other hand, Mistress of Mixers, to finish us off, Death Rattle, restore 4 health to both players, and it's well statted as a 2/2. This is a great control card. This is something I'm really interested to play. Restoring 4 health is a lot. We do not get to heal very much. It's an anti-aggro card by having a good body, but also making it so an aggro deck doesn't want to play it because it would heal their opponent. I think this card's awesome. It even comes back from N'Zoth to give you extra long-term survivability there. Great card. Will easily see play. It's above the stat line, and its effect is good anyways. That concludes the initial card review for the first 37 of the 132 cards reveal, and we'll pick up from there next time. Thanks for watching, guys.